Welcome, everyone. We are so excited to have you join us for today's webinar. This is a very important topic. We're going to talk about the truth about vaping with Fargo Cass Public Health's Melissa Markegard. We're really excited about this. This is a requested topic. It's a topic on a lot of minds of parents and educators and coaches and any adult that is working with kids in our area. This is a very important topic. And so this webinar is part of a free monthly learning series. It's presented by Dakota Medical Foundation, Level Up Fargo, and the Maddow Foundation. Together, we are working to delay, decrease, and defeat substance abuse and addiction. So whether you're a parent, again, or a teacher or coach, mentor, or caring adult, this series is for you. So be sure to follow us on social media channels for upcoming webinar announcements. And so today's webinar, I'm very excited to introduce you, if you've not met her, to Melissa Markegard. As the Tobacco Prevention Coordinator at Fargo Cass Public Health for the past 7 years, Melissa has had a front row seat to the nation's vaping epidemic right here in Cass County. In her role, she educates kids, parents, and other caring adults about many types of tobacco products available, their associated risk, and how big tobacco companies are targeting youth. So Melissa, she's well qualified to do this. She's earned her Bachelor's of Science degree from Minnesota State University Moorhead in Community Health and her Master's in Emergency Management from NDSU. She loves to spend time outdoors with her husband, twin boys, and their dog, Sammy. Melissa also enjoys baking, exercising, and golfing. She owns an online women's clothing store, and she and her husband own a VRBO cabin in Black Hills, South Dakota. Well, Melissa, in addition to being highly qualified and very busy, thank you so much for making time to educate us and our audience on this topic.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. Vaping is my entire working world, basically, and it's all I talk about. So I'm happy to be here.
You're definitely the right person to educate us. And so just to start with some of the basics, Melissa, what is vaping?
Yes. So a lot of people, I'm always kind of shocked when I'm in a room of parents, especially when I say, does anybody know what a Juul is? And very few people raise their hands. So vaping is, our vapes are e-cigarettes. So if you've heard the term e-cigarette, we're kind of moving away from that term a little bit because kids aren't really, they don't call it an e-cigarette. You know? And we gotta roll with with the vernacular that they're using. And so we call it vaping. So a vape is really made up of 4 main chemicals. Those aren't the only chemicals, but there's 4 main chemicals. And when they're mixed together, they're heated. There's always a heating element within every vape, just depending on what kind of vape you're looking at. But there's always a heat element. And then that aerosolizes those 4 chemicals that are in there, those 4 main chemicals. And then when it becomes an aerosol, then you inhale it into your lungs. And what we're really looking at is nanoparticles that are incredibly small. So we don't really know how far into the lungs they can get, but we know that they do, that there is some significant risk with vaping.
Well, that's, just to start with, Juul. So what is a Juul? Is that, could you explain that component of vaping?
Sure. So Juul is not where vaping and e-cigarettes started in our country, but really Juul is, because of how Juul marketed, they really have, they did a lot of the marketing towards kids, and the Juul is specifically kind of where a lot of kids were starting their vaping use. And I kind of, we have a youth vaping epidemic in our country. And I blame a lot of that on Juul, because Juul is because of how they marketed to kids and that type of thing. But what is Juul specifically? So this is the charger for Juul. Okay. It's a USB, right? Okay. So that's the charger. That's as small as it is. This is the Juul device. And I didn't grab a Juul pod, but the pod slides into the top of it. And it's pre-filled with nicotine and the other chemicals. And so when you have this device, you charge it, it magnetizes in there. Did you see that? It just kind of, it magnetizes. And then you charge it in the side of your computer or in the back of your, a lot of times we see kids will charge it on the back of their like gaming stations because there's USB plugins on the backs of those. And then you can't see it as a parent. You can't see that it's plugged in back there. But so this is the Juul. This is kind of, it's not where it started, but really it's where the youth epidemic in my mind started. So that's the Juul.
Well, already looking at it, I mean, this is like nothing else we've seen before in terms of tobacco. So it's like, that looks like a USB device. No one would suspect that, you know, their child or the young one that they care about is using vaping. So thank you so much for demonstrating that, because it already shows that. So Juul was a company that specifically targeted youth to use their product, and that, you know, caught on. And now we've got we've got vaping. And so this is now a serious epidemic. You know, how prolific is this, Melissa? I mean, what are we looking at in terms of what's happening in our community and across the nation?
Yeah, so it's pretty scary, actually. So here in our community, the Youth Risk Behavior Survey was done in 2019, which reported that North Dakota high schoolers, around 33% of North Dakota high schoolers are vaping. When you present that statistic to North Dakota high schoolers, North Dakota middle schoolers, they say their guess is not 33%. Their guess is much higher. And so I was just reading an email from a health teacher I had presented at her class, and I was reading her reply back to me, and she said she was really disheartened and very concerned because her health science class, they thought about 80% of their school was vaping. So the numbers, while they are high, according to the survey, we do believe that they are probably higher than 33%. But that's where we're at. So we have 33% of North Dakota high schoolers vaping. I think another concern is our tobacco citations. Those are getting younger and younger. So that is when maybe a school resource officer catches a youth with a vaping, having one on their person. Okay, that's all illegal. So then they would get cited, and we're seeing those citations happening in younger and younger kids. And then since January, I've been in 4 different elementary schools to talk to the 5th graders about vaping. And so we're looking at having to, and I'm going in because classmates of theirs are being caught on the playground vaping, on the bus vaping, that type of thing. So, you know, we're being forced to kind of look at how we are educating and going younger and younger. So I used to present in 9th grade health only. Now I present in 9th grade and 7th grade health, as well as any other class, basically life skills, health science, all that kind of stuff that wants education on it, because we can't stop educating. We have to continue on, and it's changing so rapidly that every time you turn around, I have to update my presentation because it's different.
Well, and listen, I mean, are there any signs, you know, if you're a parent, a coach, or a teacher, I mean, how would I suspect or know if somebody is vaping? Is it possible to really know if somebody is? Are there any signs?
Yeah, there have been a couple teenagers that in my circle who I've picked out, but I know what I'm looking for, right? So I know that, you know, their mood really changed, their personality kind of changed. There are very specific signs, you know, and I think a lot of times parents say, well, if I was to look at your list of things that we're looking for, to me, that sounds like a regular teenager. That sounds kind of like normal teenage issues. I would agree with that, but this is more. It's so much more. But if you visit our website, it's spotthesigns.net. And we have a new campaign right now at Fargo Cass Public Health called Spot the Signs. And one part of it is focused on parents being able to spot the signs, just exactly what you asked me. How do I spot the signs of vaping with my kids? And the other part of it is focused towards youth, and youth spotting the signs of addiction. So it's a twofold thing, but if you go to spotthesigns.net, all of our information that that I discuss is on there today. Today, if you want to go, if you're a parent, you want to download this PDF. Okay, so we have this PDF, Spot the Signs. Are your kids vaping? Okay, so we want to look for changes in behavior such as increased mood swings, irritability, anxiety, all that kind of stuff. Fruity or sweet smells coming from places where fruity and sweet smells don't belong. It's weird. So I've presented to teachers. I do that all the time as well. And so I've had teachers say, well, they're vaping in that back hallway after I start talking about flavors and fruit smells and cereal smells, because they're vaping in the back hallway because nobody's ever eating any cereal, and yet I smell cereal all the time, so that's different things that you're looking for. New terminology or words that seem out of place, such as zeroing out or discussing, like saying, I lost my pen. We oftentimes tell teachers, if you hear students say, hey, I need to borrow your book, or I need to borrow your pen, they more than likely are not talking about borrowing a book or borrowing a pen. They're more than likely talking about borrowing a vape, so that they can take a hit in between classes. So things like that. Frequent headaches or nausea, that could be signs of nicotine poisoning, or them getting too much nicotine into their system. Small vials or eyedropper bottles that you don't recognize, chargers that you didn't purchase, to devices that you have no idea what they charge. So yeah, just things like that, where it's like things that are making you question, what exactly are they talking about? Why exactly is she feeling like, why is she nauseous every day? Why does she have headaches every day? And I am using she. It's really, we're seeing really 50-50 as far as usage goes. So I just am using she, but it's basically boys, girls, 5th graders, 6th graders, 7th grade. It's really, it's an epidemic.
Well, this whole epidemic completely new. I mean, this idea that kids are using USB chargers to, inhale nicotine that smells like fruit or a flower or cereal is really remarkable. So we have to completely retrain what it is we're looking for. It's not the old ways where it's like we could smell our fingers and know that they just reeked like a bowling alley back in the old days. This is completely new to look for these signs. And so I encourage everybody that's watching this live or the recording to click the link shared to spot the signs, because this is something that is taking us by surprise too, to hear that there are some classrooms that are saying they think it's up to 80%. We're split between both boys and girls. Everybody's participating in this. It's hard to spot that it's just like prepped in and all of a sudden it's here and it's everywhere. That we really need to do our job as caring adults to monitor the situation. Melissa, could you take us back a little bit to the health risks? What are the dangers of this,
Right.
and maybe how does it compare to traditional smoking in terms of how it will impact their health?
Sure. Yes. So the dangers, I think the big one is addiction, which is why we're focusing on that in our Spot the Signs towards youth specifically. What we're seeing is being used in these products is a salt-based nicotine. Salt-based nicotine is much more easy to absorb into your system. And so you have very high nicotine content in these products. And I think the other thing to remember is that the FDA has not regulated these products. And so when you asked about cigarettes, so cigarettes are regulated to the point where we know how much nicotine is in every cigarette. We know how much us as human beings absorb if you are smoking one cigarette. It's 1 milligram of nicotine. And it doesn't matter what kind of cigarette you're smoking, you absorb approximately 1 milligram of nicotine. We don't know that with vaping. So there's it's a huge issue, because if you want to quit, that's challenging, because you have a very high nicotine addiction. Quit products that are approved by the FDA are based around the milligrams. So you have nicotine patches. Those are 21 milligram patches, 14 and 7 milligram patches. We dose those based on how much you're smoking. So if you're a pack a day smoker, you would start on a 21 milligram patch because you're absorbing approximately 20 milligrams of nicotine every day from your smoking. That is much more challenging to do when we're talking about vaping, because these kids can't report how much they're vaping. They just can't. It might not even be their vape that they're using. And so they might say, well, I take a hit in between every class, or I take a hit every 15 minutes. Well, what's a hit on this particular device compared to this particular device? Or between, it's just really, it's very, very challenging because there's so many unknowns with these products. So addiction is a huge danger that we talk about. Lung injury. So before COVID hit, we knew that there was EVALI. I call it vaping related lung injury. We do know that the majority of people who had the lung injury reported using or vaping THC containing products or products that had vitamin E acetate in them. However, not everybody reported that. Some people reported only using nicotine containing products. Well, again, we have to go back to these products aren't approved by the FDA. None of them are approved by the FDA. And so where is this stuff happening? We can assume that there is going to be some type of lung issues with vaping. I think another danger that we don't think about is the fact that they haven't been around very long. And so we don't know long-term health effects of these products. Cigarettes took a long time for us to know what long-term health effects were. We don't have decades to wait and to try and convince people not to vape decades from now. We have to do it now.
But I think this is an important element for all of us to know, is that, that it's unregulated. So we have no idea what your kids are putting into themselves. And, we have some idea that this will impair sort of lungs and how they breathe. We don't know the long-term effects. And you mentioned behavior too, and addiction. And this is, sort of a focal point of a lot of things that we're trying to do with this work right now, is that your brain isn't fully developed when you're a teenager, and we don't know what impacts it, but we know everything does impact it in a way. And this could be another radical element to introduce that could impair healthy brain development, which leads to relationship success and life success in any way that you define it, in a quality of life. Compared to traditional nicotine, you've also laid out it's more difficult to quit. So we just don't know where this whole thing is headed. What are some of maybe the other myths that people have about vaping, and certainly, what are kids thinking about this?
So I think parents, as far as myths, parents have heard, especially initially when these products started to come out, that it was just a water vapor. I've heard TV shows that refer to vaping say it's just a water vapor. And so when you get it in mainstream media as referring to it that way, that makes that myth really challenging to flip around, because there is no water in vapes. And even if there was, nobody wants to breathe water into their lungs. And it's not water, don't get me wrong, but water vapor doesn't mean anything great either. So I think that's one huge myth. I think another myth is that a lot of times we'll hear parents say, well, is this something that like, is it the lesser of whatever? Like, should we just let them try this? Because, at least it's not this, And to that, I would say no. And Scott, you referred to it just a minute ago, that nicotine addiction, and that nicotine's a poison, and it changes how your brain is formed if your brain is not done forming, which in youth, our brains are not done forming until age 25 to about 27. And so it's an incredible danger. And if you start using nicotine, that easily can transition into an addiction very quickly. And it can also change how your brain is formed. And I think that's important to remember, because if your brain is changing, I often tell kids, if your brain is changing, you won't ever be the same person you would have been if you'd never used these products in the first place. I promise you, you won't be, because your brain is different. It's forming different than it would have if you'd never touched the product in the first place, if that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, it's the myths are out there. It's just, I think it's important for parents to remember that just because their kids say something like, oh, don't worry about it, mom, it's no big deal, it's just this, it's just that, you got to do some digging, you have to get educated, because it's very important.
Well, and I think that's a perfect segue into, you know, what can we do about this? And, you know, what are some of the active steps that parents and caring adults can take to prevent this?
Mm-hmm. So I think parents and caring adults, you know, we talk about how it's so important for coaches and youth leaders and all of those people to be caring, you know, and to let kids know, like, we care about you. We don't want you. Just because I'm your coach, that doesn't mean I don't care. I care tremendously, and I don't want you to do these types of things. I think having those very real and frank discussions about what you want to see out of your team or your, you know, or your kid, like, I don't want you to do this. This is why. And having those real discussions about what your expectations are, I think they're pivotal, and they're like, you have to have them, right? I have 4-year-olds. They're going to be 5, and we have the discussions with them about what do we expect? Okay, this is what we expect, and if you don't do that, then there's consequences, and you have to expect the consequences. But we don't want you to do this in the first place, because we care. And let's get educated together, because this stuff is so new that you probably know more than I do about this. So what do you know? You know, I think that's important too, asking them, what is it that you know about these? Have you heard of these? I was listening to this webinar today, and I had never heard of any of this. Have you heard of the Juul? Have you heard of the whatever? We're going to get into the examples in a little bit, but you know, I think having those discussions about what they already know, because I have kids who come to our tobacco education class having gotten a citation, and one of my slides in my presentation is, tell me what I missed. Tell me what you wish I would have talked about, or tell me what you know that you don't think I do. And I learn something every single time I have the class, because I can't keep up with this stuff. You know, I've taught them some stuff about nicotine and what it's going to do to their brain, and I've taught them blah blah blah, all the stuff that we talk about. And now I need to know, what is it that has popped up that I need to add into my presentation. I think parents can do the same thing, and kids want to tell you. That's why I learned so much from them, because they want to be like, she didn't know that. And then I write stuff down. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take notes at this point during class, because I need to know this stuff so that I can educate others about it.
Well, and I'm so glad that you laid out, you know, what I think it's a lot of times, you know, we get questions around just what does the conversation look like? And how do I practically approach this? And framing it, you know, first, you know, about that, I care about you. So if you're a coach, or anybody laying the groundwork that this is about, you know, trying to get the best for them. And then, you know, moving into a question, that's great advice for us as parents and teachers and coaches, is to say, have you heard of this? What are you seeing? You know, and, you know, to arm us a little better, Melissa, what are some of the other terminologies or examples that we should know in addition to Juul as a company, and then just vape? Is there any other sort of current terminology or some examples you can share with us that we should inquire about and be on the lookout for?
Yes. Okay. So I have a whole bunch of examples. Okay. So this is called the Soren drop. It's refillable. So this top part pops off and is refillable. Okay. So you put your vape juice in there, and then you pop that back on. And this is a device that is charged. So that's the other thing I would suggest is, if you think it's a vape if you spot this in your child's backpack or wear laundry or whatever, if there is a spot for them to plug it in, that potentially could be a vape. Okay, because if you can see that, it's always hard to show, but a place for a charger to plug in is a very good sign that it's a vape. Okay, so this is a vape, very shiny, very interesting and fun to look at and to hold. Okay, and I like to put it in the palm of my hand so you can see the size that we're talking about. So it is very much a concealable product. The other, and then there's also like pens. So this is called a vape pen, also refillable. Also, you would charge this as well. Okay, so we have products like that. Then we also have the Juul type products, which I already showed. And then we have the disposables. And disposables are really very, very new to the market. And why disposables became so popular is the FDA did step in and they banned flavored pods. Okay, so with the Juul, the most popular flavor pods that go into the top part here, the most popular flavors were mint and mango. And so the FDA, they stepped in and it's a federal flavor ban. And so they can't sell pod flavors anymore. They can still sell menthol and tobacco flavored pods, but they can't sell things like mint and mango anymore. So Juul kind of has gone by the wayside. And I would tell parents, don't focus your efforts. If you're going to search something, don't focus it on looking for something like this. Okay. Cause you're not going to find it. Not with youth. Okay. Cause they want mango and mint and they can't really get it anymore. So what parents need to focus on right now when they're searching is things that look like this. Okay. This is called the Loon. And the flavor of this is berry lemon bubblegum. Okay. When I talk to kids about if they feel like they have been targeted by the industry, a lot of times they do say yes. And then we start talking about flavors and what flavors they have heard of that really they feel are kid friendly or kid focused. And a lot of times they say fruit. And the vaping and tobacco industry would argue that adults like fruit too, which I'm not saying that adults don't like fruit. And I'm not saying that adults can't use these products. They are legal for adults to use. But when youth feel like blueberry or watermelon or grape, strawberry, when they are naming those flavors as flavors that they feel are youth focused, that's their perception. And so that's what it is, right? And so when you have a flavor like berry lemon bubblegum, kids are like, yep, that's totally youth flavored, right? You might look for a product like this. It's called Hide. I find it interesting that, you know, we a lot of times say these are so concealable, you can't even see them. This one's called Hide. You can find it in plain sight because you don't know what you're looking at. Okay, so it really is. It's basically the size of like a marker, like a thick, like whiteboard marker. Okay, and that's what you're looking for. And they smell. Okay, so I keep all of my vapes in a plastic tote. When I took that cover off today, I was like, whew, they put off a smell even without having used them ever, right? We have things that look like energy drinks. So this one is called Vape with a Bang disposable. This one has 2,000 puffs in it and it's called Bubblegum Ice. Okay, and if you look at that logo, it really, it looks like an energy drink. Okay, so that is another thing that we're really seeing, especially with middle schoolers. Middle schoolers don't understand energy drinks. You might not want to use them. There's a lot of different nutrition downfalls to energy drinks, but they're super popular with middle schoolers. And so when you have a vape that's called Vape with a Bang and it's bubblegum ice, for whatever reason, adding ice to the end of a flavor makes it that much more apparently, because kids know the ice flavors very well. So you have products like that. You also have products like this. So this one is called Mr. Fog, and it has 2,200 puffs. I think that's important to remember. 2,200 puffs, over 2,000 puffs you can take on this device. Okay. And when you look at it, it's a dual flavored device, which is why I purchased it, to show parents and teachers and school resource officers. Okay, so it's got 2 flavors in it. On the bottom is a little switch that you can just flip, and then you're vaping the other flavors. So the flavor of this one that I purchased is mint and Fruity Pebbles. And so I purchased this one specifically because it is Fruity Pebbles. Now you mentioned at the beginning, I've been doing this for 7 years. So I started right when I started presenting, educating myself, and then presenting on vaping. And I talked about Fruity Pebbles 7 years ago. So when I went to purchase these new devices that all the kids are talking about, that I got to show the school resource officers, I was shocked that Fruity Pebbles was still something that I could purchase 7 years later. And why not? There is no regulation on it. But just so you know, I don't necessarily feel like Fruity Pebbles is something that is geared towards me. I'm not buying something that tastes like Fruity Pebbles. Kids, on the other hand, if I say I don't like Fruity Pebbles in a 7th grade classroom, I like get booed out of the room. Sometimes you hear, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know there was going to be such a negative reaction to me saying I didn't like Fruity Pebbles. But that just shows who likes them and who doesn't, and what flavor kids would go for.
Well, seeing all of these devices, it's quite evident that, these are targeted towards kids. I mean, shiny objects, they look like toys or fun things you would sort of carry around. We're, as parents and educators and caring adults, we're looking for ports that they would charge this in, looking for different flavors, making sure that we're aware of things that smell like fruit smells where there shouldn't be. And, I do want to make sure that, everybody understands how dangerous this really is that, you use the term epidemic, and, not only is it prolific, it's everywhere, but it's also getting younger. And so I think this is a really good time to make sure we're raising the awareness level, and that we're all doing our best, because we really are in an uncertain territory of what this is going to do for both brain development and physical health overall, because it's unregulated. And so this is a severe danger that, it might seem benign or innocent on the surface, but it's quite dangerous. So,
Yes.
Melissa, you've done a wonderful job showing us, what the risks are, what it looks like, signs to spot. What are some other things you think that we should all be aware of when it comes to vaping?
Well, so I think as parents, if you have a youth who is vaping and expresses interest, whether you really let them know that you'd like them to quit, or they express interest on their own that they would like to quit, we have to remember that it's an addiction. And so us telling a youth you have to quit is not going to work, because they're addicted to the nicotine. But we do have youth who want to quit, who got addicted really easily or really quickly and didn't realize it and didn't realize what they were actually doing. So there are a couple programs here in North Dakota. One is called My Life, My Quit. This is just the brochure for it. Again, if you go to our website at spotthescience.net, there is all this information as well. But this is called My Life, My Quit. It is a texting quit line that's available to youth here in North Dakota who are interested in getting some help in their quit attempt. And then we also have what's called Break Away from Nicotine here at Fargo Cass Public Health. We're in the middle of Quit Week statewide. So the North Dakota Department of Health, Tobacco Free North Dakota, all of the local public health units were in the middle of Quit Week. And so we want everybody to pick a quit date, whether you're a youth, whether you're an adult, we want everyone to quit their tobacco products, and vaping is a tobacco product. So here at Fargo Cass, we also have a quitting program called Break Away from Nicotine. And we can help individuals, whether they're young, whether they're under 21 or over 21, we can help anyone set up a quit plan, pick a quit date, kind of tackle those specifics, like when am I using, what is triggering me to use, what do my withdrawal symptoms look like, how can we get away from taking a hit every time we feel a little bit of a withdrawal symptom, like all of that kind of stuff. And I don't want to get too much into it, because if you don't know if you've never experienced withdrawal, if you've never used a tobacco product, it's challenging to understand what I'm even talking about. But we have those programs here in our state, here in Cass County, for individuals who are wanting to quit their nicotine addiction.
That's really helpful to know, and to have those resources. And, you've walked us through how to have the conversation, starting with care and concern, and then asking questions about where they're at. And so if they do surface that they are vaping, or we can certainly, we find out because we find something charged or through the laundry, to, start a quick quit plan. And given that, we don't know how much nicotine is being dosed in these devices, and, it's highly addictive, and it's connected to creating, anxiety, driven habits. It sounds like this could be very, very difficult. What are some of the things that we can do as a parent or a coach or a caring adult, if somebody does want to start that quit plan, to make sure that it's successful?
I think getting them hooked up with either the Quit Line or North Dakota Quits. I didn't mention them because I talked about My Life, My Quit, but North Dakota Quits is also a phone counseling program that is funded through the Department of Health. And I think, hooking them up with someone who is a tobacco treatment specialist, who has gone through training to help them, to do some motivational interviewing, to do all of that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's easier to talk to someone who really comes at it from a non-judgmental, you don't want to talk to your parents about something that they want you to do, right? Even if you want to do it too, you don't want to talk to them about it. So I think, encouraging them, helping them get connected with Andy Quits, My Life, My Quit here at Fargo Cass. I would be the one who would be assisting with that, or my coworker. We're normal people. We don't judge, So I think getting them connected with someone who can help talk through their addiction with them is very important.
Melissa, one thing that comes to mind before we start moving to a wrap of this is, we now know what it is. We know the dangers of it, what it looks like. But where are all of these, both the long-term vapes and these disposable vapes, where are they being purchased, and what should we be looking at in terms of, where our kids are going, and where they're spending their money, or our money?
Right. Great question. The federal law is tobacco 21. And so anyone under the age of 21, it's not legal for them to purchase these products. And then state law adopted federal law, and Governor Burgum did sign that into law right at the end of March, and it went into effect as soon as the ink was dry. And so we do have that as North Dakota state law, tobacco 21. So what that means is any place that sells tobacco products should not be selling to anyone under the age of 21. That says nobody's grandfathered in, no business is out of the loop. Everybody should be following that law. I think, we're also seeing kids purchase online. I think that was pretty prominent during COVID, when parents were maybe still had to work, and they were gone, and kids were not, kids were at home. And so if you have the right credit card delivering to the right address, you can circumvent those things that have been put in place online. I can't figure out how to circumvent them because I've tried to order online. It just, I can't get it to work, but kids can figure it out. So we have that happening. We also have older siblings providing to younger siblings. We have school resource officers. We've got an eye on this. We're trying to really figure out specifically where some of this is happening. But we do know social media is also a really great place. When you ask a room full of kids, have you seen someone vape or try and sell a vape on your social media, the majority of kids who have social media have seen it. And when I say majority, I'm talking like 95% of kids who have, say, Snapchat and Instagram. 95% of those kids have seen someone vape or try and sell a vape on their social media. So then they're exposed to it that way. And the younger and younger kids get social media, the younger and younger they're exposed to some of these products.
Wow. You know, Melissa, you've really, really opened our eyes during this discussion. You know, that vaping, you know, is incredibly dangerous. It's marketed to kids. The use of this is incredibly high. Much higher than any of us that are not working in this regularly were aware of, and that it's unpredictable because it's unregulated, it's not FDA approved, and that it's getting younger and younger, and that it's highly addictive. And you know, what's part of this is there's good resources. You've armed us as parents and teachers and coaches and caring adults to be able to have the conversation, to broach that subject first with care and concern, but ask questions about what they're using, and then that we're prepared. You've shared us some resources about Spot the Signs and to Cass County Public Health, where we can get additional resources and be aware, so we know what it looks like. You know, if it looks like a toy of some sort, if it smells fruity and it looks like it plugs in, you know, and to watch that, you know, if they're spending time with people that would be able to purchase this or online. You've given us a really good roadmap here. Anything else to add in addition to that summary that you would like us all to know about, be aware of, or to do when it comes to vaping?
I think I didn't even begin to really scratch the surface of the examples of products. And I think, you know, if you go online and you look at easy to hide vapes, you know, you put in your Google searches, and you're going to pull up stuff that's going to shock you. And I think every parent should do this, you know, because you're going to pull up the vaping watch, which I have showed to parent groups, and I've had parents say, "Oh my gosh, he's got a vaping watch," and they had no clue that it was a vaping watch. So, you know, I think there's the industry continues to create products that just hide right under our nose. We don't even know what we're looking at. But I do know that when I purchased some of these products, and then I send the emails and the text messages to our school resource officers, who are fantastic about assisting with this type of stuff. It's like they go on a scavenger hunt, because within a couple days they'll say, "Yep, got one, I got it," or they'll find something and they'll text and say, "Hey, have you seen this before?" And then I'll go and I'll look and I'll find more information on it. So I think, you know, the more you can educate yourself on what you're looking at and what you're looking for, the better as parents.
Well, that's incredibly helpful. And I mean, I think that's, you know, one of the key takeaways is that I mean, it's designed to be deceitful. I mean, it's doesn't, you know, it's not a smell or an odor that you necessarily would suspect. It's in objects that you wouldn't suspect, and it's incredibly dangerous, you know, in terms of nicotine delivery, the most dangerous that we've ever seen. And you know, something I do want to harken back to is just this concept of the developing brain, is that, you know, your brain isn't done developing until your 20s, your early 20s, and this can have a significant impact and certainly change the trajectory of somebody's development. Melissa, this is so helpful, and we've shared the links that you have mentioned. Closing thoughts for our audience, and any additional resources you think we should be aware of?
You know, I think if you're listening either live or down the road to the recorded version, you please know that I can come in and do presentations to parents, coaches. I can do them live. I can do them virtually. I can do whatever is needed as far as education goes to whoever is wanting education. So I just wanted to mention that as well, because I think it's important to know that this isn't where my education stops, right? This is an hour-long webinar, but I could do a 5-hour webinar, you know, on the different aspects of vaping and what we're looking for and all of that kind of stuff. So let me know if you need any additional information.
Well, we'll be sure to include your contact information with the stream or the post. And Melissa, thank you so much for the incredible work that you're doing in our community to help to keep our kids safe and healthy. And we appreciate you so much for coming on and sharing with us and what you do every day.
Thank you very much.
Well, everyone, we also thank you for viewing this a special episode upon vaping, which is really underestimated and something we really need to bring some awareness to. So please consider sharing this information with friends and colleagues and other parents or other teachers and coaches. Let's make sure that we're all educated and doing the best that we can to stop this vaping epidemic. Again, a special thank you to Melissa Markegard for sharing with us what we need to know about this dismal common myths and steering our youth away from using vaping products and other tobacco products. I want to let you know, everyone, that join us right here for our next live stream on addressing addiction in North Dakota, July 21st at noon. First Lady Catherine Burgum will be on to discuss her efforts to address addiction in North Dakota through Recovery Reinvented. Now, that's an initiative that's focused on normalizing conversations around addiction and creating support for those struggling with it. You won't want to miss it. So check out our social media channels for more information. Once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.